Saturday Night Live is not what it used to be. Originally launching the careers of some of the greatest comedians of all time, most in the comedy world now consider it a shadow of its former self.
Twitter stinks. I'm leaving.
It's long since lost its charm and flair and hasn't produced a real star that has taken off outside the show in quite some time. The only exception in recent memory is Shane Gillis, someone you've probably heard a lot about in the last few years. His specials on YouTube, skits under the Gilly and Keeves channel, podcasts, and comedy tours have been wildly successful, and it all started with being fired.
This is my job. I lost my job, and this is how I'm providing for you.
In 2019, Shane was a struggling comedian. Since 2010, the comedy industry has become increasingly saturated as the market has only expanded. Everyone and their mom has been rushing to make a comedy podcast to promote their stand-up tour, heavily inspired by Rogan and his circle of friends and broadcasters. Shane was in this sea of people trying to make his way, and while he was funny, things just weren't quite working out. But then an opportunity arose. His agent suggested that he send a packet into Saturday Night Live to try and be a writer. This didn't particularly pique his interest, in his own words, so he passed on the offer, until he received another offer, this time to be on-screen talent. Being more focused on his stand-up career and not feeling like he would fit into the culture of the show, he didn't have any real expectations, but still decided to go audition. After 5 minutes of stand-up, he left, and was informed a few days later he had officially gotten the job. SNL officially announced he would be added to the cast, and all of a sudden, Shane had a great opportunity. While the show was still a shadow of its former self, it represents something meaningful in the entertainment industry, a place that at one point was the most desired destination for upcoming comics. But just as things were looking up, this new opportunity would be ripped away. Comedy is a world of pushing boundaries. Sometimes jokes go too far, sometimes not far enough. It's a constant struggle of people trying to test the waters to see what they can get away with. But being on SNL would put anyone under a new level of scrutiny from industry professionals. On September 12, 2019, Seth Simons tweeted out the following. Today, SNL announced the hiring of its first cast member of East Asian descent, and also this guy. It featured a video of Shane talking on his podcast, titled Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast. In the video, he makes fun of stereotypical Chinese accents, and also uses the C slur, which I can't say on YouTube, but I'm sure most of you know what I'm talking about.
Damn, Chinatown's nuts.
It's crazy, dude.
It is full China. Dude, it's Chinese down there.
I wonder how that started. They just built one fucked up looking building, and people were like, all right, no one said anything.
Let the chicks live there, huh?
Well, they built these fucking like huge Shanghai house. The first one must have infuriated everyone. They were like,
I'm pissed
what
now.
the
I go there, I'm like, what are you guys doing here? Get these ducks out of that window.
you know what? Yeah, true. Also, I'm always like, how can there be so many fucking restaurants down here?
All rest. Well, because
you go in, there's like one person eating ever.
fat white idiots like me are down there sucking down noodles.
I hate China. I hate the food at Chinatown. Sucks.
I like
Chinese food's a very dishonest cuisine.
I don't even want to think about it.
They invented a fucking chemical to put in their food to make it delicious, dude.
It is.
They made MSG.
Good for them.
It's a dishonest food, dude. There's nothing. There's
dishonorable.
nothing to it. It's shitty,
Honorable.
shitty meat, a chemical they made up to f your body up, and noodles.
The noodles.
Cheapest thing in the world.
We got
Chemical.
Sick.
Worst meat you can find.
We got in there and we sat down, and baby girl was like, "I'm so excited for noodles," and I was like, "Yo, chill." She was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry."
She said noodles.
Yeah, and there's and it's full Chinese in there. It's like, and it's such
Isn't
weird...
that kind of like nice though? Isn't that being like, when people go into like a Mexican restaurant, like, I'll have 2 tacos. Like, I'll have a bowl of spicy noodles.
But we had in the translation between you and the waiter.
Yeah,
it's just such a fucking hassle. It's like, can you? I'm pointing at it. Like, this is the fucking noodle.
Well, that's why I put number for like 57.
Yeah, this one, even with the fucking shit, I was pointing. I was like, that sauce, that. She's like, yes. I was like, yeah, that one. She's like, yeah. She's like, medium or spicy? Yeah. She's like, medium. She's like, spicy. I was like, no, medium. No medium, spicy.
The video was pretty clearly tongue-in-cheek and not a serious statement of hatred. Regardless, Twitter did what Twitter does, as Seth Simons' tweet got a decent amount of attention, and the replies were filled with condemnation of what Shane said. Why is it always the most boring-looking, pig-faced, thumb-looking motherfuckers that talk like this? So mad, so much rage, so much anger, and so much spite from this reply. Other Twitter users, as well as news publications, began digging through his past to find more unscrupulous clips which could then be used as ammunition. Vice published an article titled, "Here's even more audio of Shane Gillis from Saturday Night Live gleefully saying slurs." The article goes as follows. Gillis took several of those risks in the Real podcast episode number 402, recorded on Memorial Day 2019. The reference to Yang revolves around a callback to a moment earlier in the episode, around 46 minutes and 30 seconds in. Damn, they got the timestamps, guys. They're going all in for the research, okay? There are people sitting in a room being paid by some fucking company to do this. In that segment, Gomez riffs about a candy he describes as a small wax bottle containing an unsatisfying amount of sweet liquid. He appears to be describing the Nick L. Lip. What a fucking scam that was, he says. He starts to say, whoever came up with that is, when Shane Gillis jumps in and says, and then we have the C slur here. The entire group, Gomez, Amico, Gillis, and comic Mike Figs, appears to erupt in laughter. And one of the comments says, cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha, and then I assume the C slur right there, over a drum sting. Shane Gillis crushing it with one word racist punchline, Gomez says, one of my favorites. Gillis's subsequent use of the slur occurs around 1 hour and 6 minutes to who cares? They're comedians. The comics are riffing about Bernie Sanders, whom Gillis describes as Mario to Dick Cheney's Wario.
I'm leaving.
The riff descends into awkwardness, and Gillis says his Wario joke was the best of the episode. Gomez responds, your C-slur line was 40 times better. Some crosstalk ensues, to which Gillis remarks on his frequent use of that slur before directing it to Sanders. That Jew C-slur right there. Commie Jew C-slur? Next, please. Next. Give me your next candidate. Dems, Jew C-slur. Next. This sounds funny. Actually, they're running a Jew C-slur Chang, dude. Then the conversation turns to author and life coach Tony Robbins. These were not the only instances of hateful language directed towards Asian people in the episode. About an hour in, the group prepares for a segment in which they watch a random podcast. In this episode, the producer has chosen the video podcast Make Money Travel blogging featuring Jacob Fu. Upon learning the name, the group, led by Gillis, breaks out into exaggerated Chinese accents. When the video starts playing, Gillis exclaims, I was making fun of these guys for being Asian. They're so hot. Look at these hot guys, dude. He speaks so much better than all of us. He chides one of his fellow comics to stop speaking in a mocking accent. Now it's very racist. These guys speak great, they're handsome. Those are nice, handsome boys having fun. Then Gillis appears to start describing the group. Fat, ugly idiots promoting hate. That's what this is, he says. That's what this is? Gomez responds. Yeah, look at all of us, Gillis says. We're all shitty people. At least those Asians were having fun. It's funny to see that all these articles are just like describing funny podcasts out in plain text, and then it's followed by like, and that's gross and racist. Like, this entire article barely has any added commentary. They just read out what happened in this podcast. And instead of being outraged over anything important happening, like, I don't know, like kids dying in Africa, they choose to be mad because this comedian was trying to be comedic. He was trying to be funny. Now, if you think some of his humor missed the mark, then whatever, it's well within your right to think that. A lot of jokes that people tell fall flat on their face, but the idea that this dude is like a horrible person because of some light jokes he made is just ridiculous. But unfortunately, that's the agenda, that's the philosophy that a lot of these types of people ascribe to, right? And this is a thing that permeates the YouTube community much more than the comedy world, which really sucks being a YouTuber, because the comedy world will, there are these people who are like negative Nancy's, right? They're looking for anyone talking shit to like try to cancel them and find some unscrupulous comments from them. But in YouTube, it's way more extreme. It's way more exaggerated. There's constantly people looking for that kind of thing. And unfortunately, the industry kind of supports that by constantly, cowering to the fans when they're mad, right? Meanwhile, in the comedy world, it's just like, oh, I was making jokes. I don't really care what you guys think. That's really the way YouTubers should operate, but unfortunately, it's not. I also just want to take a moment to highlight this really funny tweet from back in the day. So this guy tweeted out saying, to address some of the things circulating around about past tweets, I tweeted this in an attempt to shit on Shane Gillis when he was called out for being racist and defended it by saying he was pushing boundaries. In my attempt to criticize him, I ended up contributing to the very narrative I was trying to fight against. My intention was to bring Shane Gillis down, but obviously intent doesn't mean shit when your words hurt others, and I regret what I wrote and apologize to those I hurt. And the reason why he said this is because to like own Shane, he decided to say Ching Chong in a tweet. Like, this dude literally owned himself because he used this phrase in context, right? Which should be perfectly fine because he's criticizing someone, but then his dumbass followers went after him when he initially tried to like cancel Shane, and then they canceled him. I mean, the circle of life really is beautiful, isn't it? Karma is amazing. It's great. Back to the Vice article. I mean, even the way they talk about it is so silly. Vice uncovered a podcast. Yeah, you really uncovered it, Vice? Like you found this podcast on a secret flash drive in the archives of a crime scene cold case? Or do you mean you like went to his YouTube channel and downloaded it? Because if I had to guess, the latter opinion is far more likely. With all the articles coming out, Saturday Night Live felt a lot of pressure to cut ties with Shane, but they hoped he could do one episode on TV, and then the audience maybe would see he was more likable than those articles were portraying. portraying. But after more quotes came out, they decided to just drop the dude. After talking with Shane Gillis, we've decided that he will not be joining SNL. An SNL spokesperson on behalf of Lauren Michaels said in a statement to CNN, "We want SNL to have a variety of voices and viewpoints within the show, and we hired Shane on the strength of his talent as a comedian and his impressive audition for SNL. We were not aware of his prior remarks that have surfaced over the past few days. The language he used is offensive, hurtful, and unacceptable. We are sorry that we did not see these clips earlier and that our vetting process was not up to our standard." SNL is apologizing for not hiring people to listen to old podcasts and make sure the people on their show aren't saying the word gay or retard. Wow, amazing. "We are sorry we didn't see these clips earlier." Following news of his ouster, Gillis wrote on Twitter, "I'm a comedian who is funny enough to get SNL. That can't be taken away." He added, "Of course I wanted an opportunity to prove myself at SNL, but I understand it would be too much of a distraction. I respect the decision they made. I'm honestly grateful for the opportunity. I was always a Mad TV guy anyway." I hate to be one to rail on cancel culture, but this does really seem like a situation where, at least initially, it worked. It did its evil on the world in real time. Guy gets a job, Twitter mob gets mad at Guy for, jokes, Guy loses job. Shane would go on various podcasts to talk about how he thought his career was actually over at the time.
I was in pure fucking
terror.
panic. Yeah. But
because I remember somebody contacted me to have you on, and I was like, I don't have any room. For a long, I could do an emergency podcast, but I'm like, let this dude ride this out, and then we'll do one eventually.
Truly glad that did not happen, because I would have come in emotional. I would have come in
guns blazing.
Isn't fair, right? And I never felt that way. The whole time I was like, I kind of get it.
When someone gets really canceled, you need perspective.
Yeah.
You know what it's like? It's like you need that venom to work its way through your system, and then you develop a certain amount of immunity to the actual moment.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it ended up being a good thing.
But these events were actually a blessing in disguise. And I don't think that's something he realized at the time at all. But looking back, with hindsight being completely 2020, I think we can see that this was an extremely important turning point in Shane's career. And without that, he definitely would not be nearly as big as he is now. And I think the reason why you don't see Shane go on podcasts today to be a sort of culture warrior dude and talk about the evils of cancel culture, the reason he's not collabing with the Quartering every day is because those who tried to cancel him, like Seth Simons, inadvertently gave him the biggest boost of his career. Prior to getting his job at SNL, and even as he was hired, he was a completely unknown name in a sea of comedians trying to make it big. He didn't have connections. He wasn't really shit. After his name and face were plastered all over news articles, his Patreon page for his podcast quadrupled in revenue, and a lot of very popular comedians, even those considered legends by today's standards, began paying attention. He became a massive topic of conversation in the comedy world, with even big names like Bill Burr giving his take on it just days later on the same podcast as Theo Von.
I don't think it's fair. I wouldn't want to be judged by one thing that I did.
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago. So that's personally something I wouldn't do. I would never do that to somebody.
Right.
And
it's just
I think it says a lot about you as a person that you went out and did that to him.
Before long, he was appearing on Theo Von's show, hanging out with Andrew Schultz, and eventually got a spot on Joe Rogan. Andrew Yang even posted saying he would be meeting up with Shane to have a conversation, implicitly communicating that he didn't care about the jokes made about Chinese people. Anyone who actually had a real platform seemed to understand that jokes were just being made for the purpose of being jokes. He was doing comedy. And the worst you could say is that they were in poor taste or didn't land. It's not like the dude was doing episodes of America First with Shane Gillis, right? He was just making jokes. Thankfully, the comedy world embraced his intentions and recognized him for his comedic talent, and in the past few years, Gillis has become, honestly, a household name. His comedy special, which was a live performance in Austin, Texas, which is available for free on YouTube, has more than 12 million views. His Gilly and Keeves project, which features sketch comedy with him as the star, has more than 400,000 subscribers, 45 million views, and has received critical acclaim across the board. His Patreon now has more than 60,000 members, meaning at a bare minimum, if every one of those people donates to the lowest tier, he and his co-host Matt bring in $60 grand a month. I would estimate that number is well over 100,000 with how loyal his fan base is at this point, and the fact that a lot of people would probably be willing to go for the $5 a month tier if they want to support the comedy they really enjoy, which, a lot of these people do, especially because his audience is mostly adults, meaning they're willing to fork over a bit more cash to support independent artists and entertainers. Keep in mind, this income isn't even accounting for the fact that he makes money on tour, obviously, which I'm sure is a lot of money for him. Looking back at these old tweets of people being really mad at Shane, just seeing him blow up and whatever and get attention and being bitter about that, it's really funny considering how famous Shane is now. I mean, the dude really is a household name, like I said before. All of my normie friends from high school love this dude. My girlfriend's mom knows who he is. It's crazy. But at the time, all of these people were super fucking bitter about the fact he was even getting attention. They were just plugging their ears. They're like, no, don't talk about it. He's gonna get famous. Stop retweeting every shitty racist thing Shane Gillis said. We get it. You're turning him into a hero to other shitty racists. Let him fade back into the obscurity that Lauren almost plucked him from. from. Reminder that SNL tried to hire Shane Gillis, but had to fire him because of his racist comments. Tonight, they tried to have a country singer on, but fired him because he violated COVID guidelines. Pandering to the guys who get their news from Joe Rogan crowd is always a losing strategy. The great irony of these tweets being that Rogan, Shane Gillis, and all of their friends are extremely famous and more popular than SNL or any legacy media like almost ever has been, exactly because they don't pander to what tabloids and publications want or what losers on Twitter think. They just make cool stuff and people watch it, and that's really all there is to it. Meanwhile, all of these people are totally forgotten. I mean, it was genuinely difficult to even find who started the whole hate against Shane and dug up those old clips. That Seth Simons dude is not mentioned in any article. He isn't named in any video about it, any podcast at all. He's forgotten. Shane won. I don't know that that's something to necessarily celebrate because obviously we got the good ending. You don't need to like shit on these people even more because at the end of the day, like they're just nothing, right? But it's also just nature taking its course. Shane is super funny and he blew up, and that's always how it was meant to be. These people just sped along the process instead of, making him wait 10 more years to build up his career more and more and make those connections. They decided to just hand it to him on a silver platter without realizing it. That's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you liked the video. Leave a like if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it. Be sure to leave a comment down below with your thoughts. Follow my Instagram, TomButDark, to see all the pictures of my face, and bye.